Well, as the saying goes, that tango is a hard act to follow. I would like to thank Todd, Gailun, the organizers of this TEDx, for inviting me here to talk about the gift of adversity as part of the hero's journey. Now, we all know adversity is a bad thing. But gift, how does that work? Well, that's what I hope to share with all of you today. There are three types of adversity: bad luck, bad judgment, and the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey has also got a sort of poor relative called the adventure, which doesn't have the vision and the altruism, but you'll see, it relates. This vertiginous drive around the Cape of Good Hope Peninsula in South Africa is called Chapman's Peak. And it doesn't really do justice to how scary it is to come around on the left-hand side of the road closest to the cliff, when for the last 30 years you've been driving on the right-hand side of the road. I'm talking about myself, of course. But luckily I had in my car 3 high-level consultants, also known as backseat drivers, in the form of my mother and my 2 sisters. And they were free to offer advice, such as, "You're going too far to the left, you'll get us all killed. Now you've overcorrected and you're going into the oncoming traffic." In the middle of all this, the following helpful road sign pops up: "Beware of falling rocks." Something to myself, now, what can I do if the rocks are falling? How will I even know that they're falling until they hit me? So that is an example of the first kind of adversity. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time, bad luck, it happens. Now this guy over here is not exactly that kind of adversity. He's driving while drinking coffee, listening on his Bluetooth, and texting. If he has an accident, he can hardly blame it on bad luck. Let's hope he doesn't try it while driving around Chapman's Peak. Now we have the third kind of adversity. How many of you have had mothers that said in one form or another, "Don't go looking for trouble"? A lot. Well, that's what the hero does. He goes looking for trouble. He seeks out adversity, or she, and we have over here the prototypical hero in the Greek mythology form of Prometheus. He goes to steal fire from the gods, to bring it back as a gift to all mankind. And Prometheus knows when he does this that he's looking for trouble, because you don't defy the gods of Olympus without getting punished. They will wreak their vengeance on you, and here you see him chained to a rock with an eagle feasting on his liver each day. The liver grows back, and then the eagle comes back the next day. Now, Freud said of a myth that a myth is something that has never been true, but will always be true. And so it is that this is a myth that has inherent in it a basic truth. Because in our own time, and in my own country, South Africa, a hero arose in the form of Nelson Mandela. And he defied a very powerful and vengeful institution, the apartheid government of South Africa. And wise as he was, he must have known that this would not go unpunished. And indeed, they punished him. They chained him like Prometheus. They chained him to a rock in the form of the fortress prison called Robben Island. It's a rock out in Table Bay. You can see it from Cape Town. Now it's a tourist attraction. But then it was a grim place. And they left him in his small cell where he languished for 18 years. Could he have known that he would emerge as a hero to transform that society from a fascist culture to a democracy? I doubt it. But what he definitely did know is that by taking that course, going on the hero's journey, he would certainly encounter serious adversity, which he did. Now let's step away from these great heroes and just talk about ordinary folks who go looking for trouble. People who take on adventures. They may have a good outcome, but you take on a risk in order to get a reward. And that's the story of many of us in this country who immigrated. Because when you immigrate, you're going to leave behind family, you're going to leave behind friends and your homeland, familiar places, familiar things, and you do so hopefully to make a better life for yourself. And so it was that in the mid-70s, I came with my young family to this great metropolis in which we are now standing, New York City, this amazing place, as many immigrants have come to this iconic island. I came here and, of course, in the process, courted adversity, which is going to happen with any immigration. You're going to come across difficulties. For me, the greatest difficulty was the cold, dark days of winter. I had lived all my life in sunny South Africa. Little prepared was I for the lack of energy, the sapping away of spirit, the downcast feelings, the pessimism, so different from how I had felt when I arrived in those giddy, long summer days. What was happening? How could this be? And then spring came, and it all came back to me again. That was not so bad. What was I making a fuss about? And so it went for 3 cycles, and I thought, wow, something interesting is going on here. And that led me to, from my biggest adversity to the biggest gift. I pursued a research career, and there with my team, we described a new condition, seasonal affective disorder, and developed a new treatment, light therapy. And this seasonal affective disorder is not a joke. And this treatment is not a joke. I use it to this day. I've got a light box there in my hotel room. And if I didn't have a light box there, I wouldn't be so excited standing here talking to you. I'd be kind of trying to get the sentences out. But I'm happy, and I'm happy that I'm happy. And so can all the other people now who suffer from this condition, which at the time we described it was regarded as an eccentricity, a curiosity. And so it was that if I hadn't personally had this adversity, I would not have had the conviction to spend decades of my life trying to figure it out and find a way out of the darkness. So I am grateful for this gift from my adversity. Now, let's shift a little and talk about different kinds of heroes, from Nelson Mandela, Winston Churchill, world stage heroes. Let's talk about smaller heroes, our personal heroes. Because as I've traveled around and talked, I find that many of us have people that we regard as heroes. How many of you have heroes? Almost everybody. We see them all around. Just the other day, I was in Central Park, and a young boy comes zooming past on his skateboard. Excuse me, whizzes by, and I look and I say, what's wrong with this picture? And then I see that there's only one leg on the skateboard and only one foot. Where's the other one? How did he lose it? And how did he become so cheerful despite not having a leg? How is he exuberantly zooming around on his skateboard? But before I can even think about that, he zooms back again. Whoops, excuse me. I say, I think you're awesome. He says, thanks. And he's on his way. He doesn't care about my compliment. He's too busy enjoying a wonderful autumn day in Central Park. And so it is that the resilience of the human spirit enables us to take adversity and turn it into a gift. There's something called post-traumatic growth. We've all heard of post-traumatic stress disorder. But there are now more than 3,000 articles on post-traumatic growth that occurs after trauma. Now, we've all said, many of us have said, we have personal heroes. I would like to share with you just a few of my personal heroes. Ordinary, modern time heroes who don't exactly fit the mold necessarily of Prometheus, except for one. I'll start with somebody who was named the same as my name, or rather, I am named after him. He was my uncle. Norman Rosenthal was 20 years old when he volunteered to fight with the Allies against the Nazi war machine. And he went up to North Africa, which was at that time a hotly contested battleground because it was the bridge to occupied Europe. Heading up an infantry platoon, he and his comrades fought against Field Marshal Rommel, known as the Desert Fox. 4 battles Norman fought and came through. And in the 5th battle, his luck ran out. And he was mortally wounded. And he was lying bleeding out in the desert. And we wouldn't know the story had it not been for a savvy field padre who ministered to him and told the story to a canny reporter who wrote it up in a South African newspaper. What happened was that water rations were in short supply in the desert. And they came around to Norman and asked him would he take some water because he needed it. And he said, please give the water to people who have a better chance of living than I do. I'm not going to make it and I don't want to waste the water. And no amount of persuasion would enable them to get him to take the water. And so it was that he died there in the desert, making me think that sometimes being a hero is not just how you live, but how you die. And we're just lucky that we have a written record of those events, because how many millions of people must there have been who died in heroic circumstances, but whose deaths have gone unrecorded? My second hero is my mother. She was 75 years old, asleep in her cottage alone at night, when she woke up to find 3 young thugs on top of her, attacking her, choking her, pulling the rings off of her fingers. Can you imagine how terrifying that must have been, waking up in the night with these people on top of you and God knows what they're going to do to you? But she was a very quick-thinking person. And she realized immediately they want money and they want anonymity. And she said to them, if you get off me, I will show you where the money is and I will escort you out of here and nobody will see you. And the miracle of it is that in the middle of the night, 3 young thugs listened to the words of an old woman. They got off her. She showed them the money. She said, there's the door. I'm not turning on the lights. Nobody has seen your faces. You'll go free. And so it happened. When the police came, they said there's nothing unusual about this crime in South Africa except for one thing. The victim is alive. And so it was that we had 10 more years with my mother, thanks to her presence of mind and quick thinking. So sometimes being a hero means just staying alive. Now, my third hero is actually a hero to millions of people. In the 1990s, I was lucky enough to meet the great Austrian neurologist and author, Viktor Frankl. How many of you have heard about Viktor Frankl? Many, many, many people. And I spent an afternoon in his company, but it's an afternoon I will never forget because the man had a presence. 90 years old, short of stature, but with a ramrod bearing, almost blind, but with a mind so sharp and so present that it's unforgettable. And there I had the privilege of listening to the history of Vienna from the early 20th century, how he met Sigmund Freud, how he was a neurologist in pre-war Austria, how he stayed on in Austria despite the gathering Nazi storm because he didn't want to abandon his family, and then how he was carted off to the death camps along with millions of others. And I had previously asked my friend who had taken me along to visit with Viktor Frankl, I had asked him, please clear it with Dr. Frankl as to whether there's anything that's off limits. I knew that these times in the death camps must surely be very traumatic to talk about and terrible times to revisit. And when I came there, he said, nothing is off limits. Ask me anything you want. That's how transparent and open he was. And so I did. And I heard how he had lost his parents in the death camps, his wife, friends, but he never lost his spirit. And when he came back after the liberation, he was in the mold of Prometheus, the hero who returns with a gift for all humanity. And that gift he wrote up in his masterpiece, Man's Search for Meaning, which has been read by millions of people now. And the core of that gift, the core of that philosophy, the fire that he brought back from the death camps and the belly of the beast to share with all of us, is summed up here, that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Furthermore, he said, what is to give light must endure burning. If you wish to be a hero and get the gift, you must endure the adversity. Thank you.